Thank you very much, James. It's a pleasure and honour to be here tonight. Malcolm, a few months ago, called me up and said, would you mind doing a small talk in front of a few people up in London? And I suddenly realised it was the House of Lords with two world-class broadcasters, someone with an amazing story and a lord. Yeah, so I'm feeling the pressure to close up right now, but I'll do my very best. James, I voiced these concerns to James over dinner, and he said, if you're doing rubbish, I'll just tug you on the jacket and you can speed up. So he's putting the strings on this one. But as James kindly introduced, this year for Kidney Cancer UK, I cycled the length of South America, along with two friends, Leo and Chris, who can't be here tonight. Leo was raising funds for Right to Play. It's a charity that raises funds to get children into sport in Africa, and also Chris was raising for Alzheimer's Society. I was cycling for my dad, who'd recently been diagnosed with kidney cancer. And so the reason, as James said, it was a bit mad, really. Chris and I were working in law firms just down the road, actually, and Leo was in a bank. We'd all been there for about 5 years and thought, these are very good jobs, and there are a lot of benefits, but we kind of lost a sense of adventure, and we kind of thought, I have to watch my language, but we thought, let's go for it.
Don't watch your language, I don't care.
Cheers, James. So we went for it and thought, let's do something adventurous, whilst we can hopefully raise some good funds for charity. And we said, without ever owning any bikes, let's cycle the length of South America. So around 12 months ago, almost to the day, we flew to Cusco in the middle of South America with the intention of cycling all the way to the bottom, to the south coast, flying to the very top, and then coming back down, back to Cusco in the middle of Peru, basically due to the weather, which would cover the length of South America. So we flew over to Cusco in Peru, and really, to be honest, whilst I'd done as much training as possible, you can't everyone said, so were you ready when you went? And the only way you could be ready is to take 5 months off before and cycle for 10 hours a day. And I couldn't do that working in a law firm. So we were kind of just winging it. And therefore, the first time we'd ever ridden with all our luggage on our bikes, within 5 minutes, we were all off our bikes on the dual carriageway, almost run over by a bus. I didn't tell my mum that one. Maybe still haven't. Day 2, lunchtime, we fortunately found a cafe. Honestly, I couldn't feel any of my legs. I couldn't even feel my arms, which I didn't expect. And I completely broke down into tears. And didn't think at the time I'd be coming back to 100-odd people and telling them that, really, in public. But it just gets across, really, the situation I was in. I felt very, very lost. But at the same time, I'd told Kidney Cancer UK we were going to raise loads of cash, so I couldn't fly home. I wanted to be honest. But we had to crack on, really. So we had a team talk, carried on. Day 4, took a turn for the worse, got a bit of food poisoning in the middle of Peru. It's not very hygienic there. It's much better food at the House of Lords. Thank you. Yeah. So stayed up all night, and the lads took one look at me and said, you need to find a hostel ASAP. Driven to a local health centre. The village of about 12 people, to be fair, had a health centre, and they put all the fluids in an IV drip that they could into me as soon as they could, but they ran out fairly quickly and said, you're going to need to get to a big hospital down the road. Okay, where's the ambulance? I'll be there, right, let's go. I was actually stood with my own drip above my head for around 2 hours with a couple of llamas for company. And so, yeah, drip up here, and other hand out here calling a cab. But the cab got me there, and I spent the next 24 hours on a drip with some quite horrific scenes in this Peruvian hospital. I was kind of saying, I'll come here for my dad who's a bit ill, and all I'd achieved was to get more ill than my dad. So I'll have to speed up very quickly now, or I'll get a tug on the jacket. In the first 30 days of the 9-month trip, I went to hospital 6 times, and a week later was paralysed in my arms and my legs. And my best friend genuinely came into the hospital thinking I was in a coma. He said, I honestly thought you were in a coma. I was in tears, being kind of wheelchaired with an oxygen tank in the middle of a PAS, thinking, this is it. We got through that first 30 days. Bolivia, very tough. We got through to Bolivia. There were stretches for 10 days where there was maybe water supplied every 2 or 3 days, but we got zero food for 10 days. So through the Atacama Desert, we were pushing at... People were kind of calling me up, being like, your Strava's a bit slow. Strava's this app for saying how quickly you go on your bike. It's very competitive. And I'm like, you're a bit slow. You only did 30k yesterday. And yeah, it took me 12 hours because I was carrying my bike through sand with 10 days of food on the bike as well. And we saw no one. That was mentally probably the toughest part. Again, the pressure was on us because we'd said we'd raise all this money for charity, so we better crack on. We got to Argentina. Steak and red wine. It was lovely. There were some good bits of the trip. I had to make it sound a bit tough to start with. So then we tried to cross into Chile, and there was a tunnel through the border of Argentina and Chile is essentially the tallest part of the Andes. It's about 4,500 meters high. And as proven, I'm very bad at altitude. So this tunnel seemed ideal at about 3,000 meters. And the chap at the front, in what I translated in very poor Spanish, he said, you can't come through here, no bikes allowed, you can put the bikes on the back of that truck and we'll take you through. And it was still early on in the trip, and we were like, well no, this is for charity, come on, we're going to cycle the length of South America, come on. We're going to take a 2-day route over the tunnel and just take it on, brilliant. 12 hours later, I'm pushing through snow at 30% gradient and I'm just slipping downwards and I'm not making any forward progress. We eventually found the pass to Chile, and we could see the Chile sign saying, welcome to Chile, brilliant. This was actually, had been snowed, I think it was maybe my Spanish translation, so I apologise to the lads, I haven't really told them that yet. They said, I think they might have said it was closed. But it was totally closed off, so the only way was to go back down through the tunnel and say we cheated and get a lift, or take off all the panniers from the bikes, climb up this rather large mountain, well, the highest point of the Andes, and literally throw it into the next country. So it was bag after bag, and we spent about 2 hours. We got over, and we flew down into Chile. But to be honest, I don't think we ever would, and I didn't cry at that point, which I'm proud to say. But I think I would have if it was my day 2. So it was that Bolivia-Peru segment of my life really gave me a bit of a kick up the arse, to be honest. I said, there'll be some tough times, but you just need to crack on, you'll get through. And we did, so I'm really, almost, in a way, very grateful for my paralysis in the PAS, because it can't get worse than that. Really. So then, it's actually all uphill from here, not literally, it was flat, brilliant. Through Patagonia, lovely views, we got to the bottom of Argentina, we'd done it 7,000 kilometres over about 5 months, and we flew to the top of Colombia. I saw my mum for a week, it was lovely, and then the reality hit again and we had 5,000 kilometres to go. But we were a lot fitter by this stage. We'd sorted out timings, we were a well-drilled machine, so I felt like we could really go through and explore the country a bit more. We met some incredible people in Colombia. It's probably the best country I've ever been to. Not really in terms of views, the rest of South America was a lot prettier, but some of the people we met, I met the happiest people I'd ever seen, and they had absolutely zero. I met this, she's still the background screensaver on my phone actually, and she has been for 9 months, which some people say is a bit weird, but she, you have to hear the story. She was 5 years old, and she worked from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, selling beers on the side of on the road with her mum and her dad. And I've never seen someone brighter and more enthusiastic for life. It was quite inspirational, really, and she had absolutely nothing. And the whole country was like this. And it's actually, I looked into it, into the science, and it's been voted the happiest country in the world many times, but over a third of that country are in poverty. And they're still, although the papers might say things are over, it's all good, it's actually not. There's still a lot of civil war, and every family you speak to knows someone in their family or a close friend who's been murdered because of the civil war. And still the happiest country in the world. And you ask why, and they said, we're grateful that we've got family, and we've got some friends, and we're just going to make the best of it, which is something I really took away from that trip. And then we carried on. The fitness was good, as I said, and we did around 30,000 metres of climbing in 30 days to get to Cusco. We finished, and we drank lots of nice wine. We'd covered 12,500 kilometres, just over 8,000 miles, and we'd climbed the equivalent of 15 Mount Everests on our bikes. And as for three charities, we raised just under £50,000. Thank you. Thank you. So you're quite right, James. I was a bit mad to go, but hopefully you can see why I went and what I learned from it, and it's definitely the best thing I've done in my entire life. And the last person I want to thank is my dad, because, I'll say it without getting too emotional, even at the start of this speech I was very, very, very nervous, and he gave me a little nod, and I was very grateful for my dad being there. And the reason I even probably had this, he won't like this because he didn't want me to go in the first place, but he wanted me to be a lawyer again. The reason I went was because he put me into sport, pushing myself out there. I can't really remember a sports game from the age of 5 to 18 where he wasn't there on the sideline clapping me through. And so, kind of what I touched on with the climbing is they're grateful for their family, and I'm just so grateful that my dad's here. And without things going on like KCUK, what James is doing, maybe that wouldn't be the case. So thanks to my dad, and thanks to the charity for all your help in promoting our trip. And thank you. Cheers. Thanks.